Good day, everyone. Welcome to the SASI debate competition, running under the theme Nurturing Ideas for a Healthier Society Through Debate. It is all systems go. Salutations and many thanks to our supporting partner, our main supporting partner, which is the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. A lovely welcome also to our adjudicators that actually have the toughest job, but yes, they are doing it. They are doing quite an excellent job. And also someone who's doing quite an excellent job is the sign language professional, as she's doing the sign language. That is it. Alright, so without wasting any time, it is SASI debate, and right now we are in the semi-finals part 2. We want to know which institution is going to the finals. So without wasting any time, the institutions that I have with me are, to my far right, it is Mutare Polytechnic, and here we have Midlands State University, University of Zimbabwe, and Africa University. So without wasting any time, let the games begin, and to all of you, wish you the best. So, with the motion, this house would make it mandatory for all secondary schools and tertiary institutions to provide free sanitary wear to all female learners. I'll repeat. With the motion, this house would make it mandatory for all secondary students and all secondary schools and tertiary institutions to provide free sanitary wear to all female learners. The Prime Minister, you can come forward and begin.
Being a 2019 saw a group of women asking why there was a shortage of girls within a school. They asked questions until they reached the idea and the truth that at the end of the day, the young girls that existed within those parts of Benga existed within a world that did not allow them to access sanitary pads. I'll date you back to history, where we see the girl child continuously being under the societal expectations to A, not even go to school, B, to not access necessary needs because she's of a lesser value. She does her chores, she goes to school, she manages this, and she still has to have her menstruation period. We think that the history that shows what the girl child has been through throughout history of Africa shows exactly why a girl child needs to have this conversation. I'm going to explain to you why it is necessary for us to have this conversation, why we are talking about how children are supposed to have, how young women within these institutions are supposed to have sanitary pads. We'll talk about how at the end of the day, the economics of the issue, what they look like. We're going to talk about how at the end of the day, because we're going to talk about the developing countries in which this girl child is, in which she has been already undermined and undervalued, is living in currently. We can talk about how she cannot afford the pads that she has to have. We can talk about then what that causes at the end of the day. We're talking about missed school days because a child cannot access certain things that were brought on by nature as well. We think that the moment we undervalue the fact that it is a natural law of order of things that was brought to her not by her will, but by something that she cannot control, we owe it to her to say, after every historical thing that has happened to women, undervaluing them, we owe it to them to allow them to have access to sanitary wear. We think that there are also effects that come with the fact that they cannot access sanitary pads. We think that organizations like Chiedza community centers have been proving the fact that there is a large hole within the system, which is the provision of sanitary wear. Not only can women not afford it, but we don't think they should be even in the question of affording it. We think that the psychological effect that exists within this mindset of a young girl who thinks, oh my goodness, I'm not going to have a sanitary pad the moment that I have my period in class, we think that there's a problem there. We think that the reason why we even have schools and what we determine schools to be in our society is a situation where schools are supposed to be a safe and conducive environment for a young girl to learn her school. We think that the moment that she is otherwise worried about her sanitary pads and everything that might happen because she does not access them, we think that the school is not providing exactly what she needs. Yes.
Madam Speaker, ma'am, confirm that middle-class girls can afford pads.
First of all, maybe if they can, they can. But we think that on an average, giving you a scale of statistics, a girl can save up to 5,000 within her lifetime if she does not spend on sanitary wear. We think that in a situation where she has this because of nature, she doesn't need to be buying them in the first place. We'll talk about why at the end of the day we think the government is in the right position to be doing so. We think that the schools that necessarily exist within this context are schools that are governmental. And because of this, they're an extension of what governments should be doing. We think that it lies then as a duty to them to deliver what we want to the table. We think at the end of the day, what our world looks like is a world where we have a partnership of the governments and the schools, where pads are something that are going to be given a leeway for schools to purchase in order to give free pads to a girl child. So what do we give you, panel? We tell you why it's necessary. We tell you that women can't afford them. We tell you that we have missed school days and the psychological effect that has on women. We think that at the end of the day, why these schools? Because these schools are the primary homes of every child. Thank you.
Now it is time for the leader of opposition to come forward.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the notion that young girls are not happy or they are psychologically affected by the fact that they are not going to be able to have sanitary wear when they reach the time to go to their periods. I feel like what society has done, we have overinflated or rather created a problem that should not have been this big a problem in the minds of young people. What we have done is we have made young people think that sanitary pads, the traditional pegged sanitary pads, are the only forms of sanitary wear that are in existence. Our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers grew up without the sanitary pads. They were not in existence. They used what? Cotton rags. What we are proposing as a delegation is that instead of pushing the notion that young women are disadvantaged just because they cannot afford sanitary wear, let us help young people be able to use
point of information.
Be able to use the cotton rags that have been used by our grandmothers, the cotton rags that have always been used, that have seem to not have caused any problems in terms of health or anything. Let us teach them how to disinfect.
Account for the fact of the entire population of women that have been actually that have been having infections because of cotton.
Ladies and gentlemen, our mothers, before the existence of sanitary pads, people have been able to survive. Our mothers survived. Our grandmothers were able to survive without the infections. How did they grow up to be this old without infections? We also have a whole generation of people that still prefer to use the cotton rags instead of the sanitary pads because they feel that it worked for them. Older generations feel like sanitary pads are a useless investment because the cotton rags worked for them at that time, so they continue to work for them. So why then are we creating a situation where we are saying that young people are disadvantaged just because they cannot afford the traditional sanitary pad? Let us teach them how to disinfect them, how to clean them, how to reuse them, without actually having to feel disadvantaged. What we are saying, another point that we are going to raise as non-affirmative is that we feel like the wrong people have been targeted by saying we are going to target people in secondary and tertiary education. We find that 14% of girls in Zimbabwe complete secondary schools, and among the poorest of these, only 1%, among the poorest, only 1% are in schools. So by giving them in tertiary schools and secondary schools, what we have done is we have actually targeted the wrong market. The people that actually need them, that really need them, are not in these schools. They are found where they are not in school. They can't even afford to go to school. I feel like a person who can afford to go to tertiary education is more likely to be able to afford sanitary pads. So when we're saying that let's target the tertiary institution and secondary institution, we feel like we have targeted the wrong market. What we should do rather as a government, what we suggest the government to do is ensure that everyone, the whole entire society, is able to afford sanitary ware without a problem. What are we saying? We are saying that let us subsidize sanitary ware. Let us remove taxes on sanitary ware so that at the end of the day, the entire population is able to afford and get access to sanitary ware, instead of saying that let us focus on tertiary and secondary students, when at the end of the day, we'll seem to find that these are not even the people who are disadvantaged. We have more disadvantaged people who are found outside of these institutions, outside of these systems. Those are the people that really need the assistance. But then we are saying let's mandate that it's put in secondary and tertiary institutions. We fail to address the problem. Thank you.
Now it is time for the Deputy Prime Minister to step forward.
We get two things from side opposition. First, they say that our parents survived for so long without these things, so why there's no need. We think that argument is not argument that is relevant here. Just because something was done before, even though it was done poorly, is not a reason enough for it to continue being done. For example, just because parents survived without cell phones growing up, or just because our parents grew up without electricity, does not mean we should also do the same because they did so. Also, by the way, they may have grown up with cotton rags, but many of those people did not even get to live a long life, one, because of many infections that occurred because of the unsanitary manner of these cotton and these methods that were done in the past. We don't think we buy into that argument. The second argument is saying that this is the wrong market. They say that no, not everyone is in school. We agree that not everyone is at school, but the fact that this policy does not cover anyone does not make this policy useless or does not make this policy ineffective. I do agree that yes, more should be done for communities outside of school, but the debate today in question is of those in school. So whether or not people in school are affected becomes a conversation for a different day, but we'll also love, once we see that this model works, to even extend it to the further society. So in fact, this model can be a test case to see that does this idea of free sanitary work on a smaller scale, and then how then do we best further and make it bigger and also support your point. We think this is an argument actually for side proposition, side government. Let's move on to the debate. My first speaker told you why this policy is necessary in the very grand scheme of things. We do agree with that. We're going to tell you why. She also hinted and told you why it's legitimate when she told you that the role and the fundamental role of a school, be it tertiary, primary, or secondary, is to create a conducive environment for learning and a conducive environment that nurtures and creates a student and an individual worthy to enter the real life.
Clarity?
Yes, Maria.
Okay. Where in your model do we see the feasibility of
I'm getting to that, Maria. Patience, Maria, patience. So I'm going to then focus on, finish off the idea of legitimacy to say that, and move on to the idea of why and the how this money works and how the money works. So as I mentioned, and Carol told you earlier on, the primary role and the most institutions of learning, be it tertiary or secondary, are governmental, meaning that already in government tables there have already been ideas and balances on how to make sanitary ware feasible and how to make sanitary ware accessible to most people. So what then this policy then does is that it reallocates those budgets to make it free for the fuller population, and reallocates budgets or sections of the budgets from other departments and focuses on this, not only by giving it hard cash, but also by offering tax exemptions on these particular companies. But also what this then does is that individual companies, for example, as it happens in the Tier 1 recently had a scheme that it did with high school, that it provides free internet at a premium price. So what this then does, that key engagement can be made between tertiary institutions, between secondary institutions and government and these organizations, so that they can also get the good publicity that comes with being pioneering such a project, especially in the market whereby feminism is profitable in the corporate world. So the corporate has buy-in because feminism and being seen to be doing good for women is good for them. That's corporate buy-in. Government buy-in for the sense that it's their primary responsibility to make sure that women are being taken care of, and young women who aren't facilitating these things are being taken care of. Government has buy-in and government has reason to do so. But most importantly for the situation and for the institutions themselves, because they have an active burden to make sure that their students are being prepared and that their students are having suitable working environment for this particular thing. But also, what does this then do for the broader psychology of women? For a very long time, our young girls have felt neglected by the system. They have felt like the system favors men and favors a lot of people. How big a statement is this for our young women to feel that, no, we have governments that care, we have secondary institutions that care, that the psychological boost and the ideas and the feel-good fact that surrounds this transcends more than just the tangible, but also to the physiological and the psychological. We think this is a plus for all aboard. But also, most importantly, panel, what have we done to you today as a government bench? One, we've shown you why this policy is necessary. Carol does a very brilliant job in that. Secondly, she also tells you why it's legitimate, why it's the role of the school, why it's the role of the government. And I explained to you how the monetary works, because everyone is buying profitable to be feminist. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Now it is time for the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
My noble delegation, there is a difference between pity and support. The moment we start treating girls like people that cannot sustain themselves, we then treat them with an attitude of pity. And this my noble delegation in itself is not okay. Simply because, why? They claim that women cannot afford pads, my noble delegation. At the end of the day, we then get to see that the majority of women can afford pads. And most of them that are in school, only 1% of them are the ones that are poor. And then at the end of the day, how then do we want to supply pads to people in tertiary institutions when we know very well that tertiary education is a privilege, my noble delegation? If you can afford tertiary education, that means you can indeed support pads. We do not want to oppress women. Hence, our debate is about empowerment. Empowerment that comes with the mentality, empowerment that comes from the mind. We are saying, with the moment we implement our policy that says, let us make policies that can make pets more affordable to everyone, rather than giving them to schools. If we give things to people that can already work, people that can already afford, these people can have what we call a fake or an irrational mentality of disadvantagedness. And when we treat people with this mentality of pity, at the end of the day, these people will be affected by the attitude that we would be giving them. Hence, we do not want such an attitude amongst our girls and young women, because we are trying to develop as a country. Declined. We are trying to develop as a country. We are a third world country that do not have many resources. And at the end of the day, we want empowerment. And empowerment that comes from the mind will go a long way. If we treat people with this mentality of pity, we will not go anywhere. We also want to focus on the groups that are right, and on the things that really deserve our attention. The things that deserve our attention is making sanitary pads more affordable. How do we do that? By making up policies such as subsidies, and making up policies such as subsidies. Taken.
Don't you think that even if they can afford, don't you just think because of the historical injustice that happened on women, that they deserve free pads as just payment for those injustices?
I do not think that women deserve to be given pity. I don't think women have to be treated as though they are not capable of funding for themselves. They have to be empowered and encouraged, and they have to be put in a situation whereby they themselves will be pushed internally and by the society around them to work harder. And when they work harder, the support that the government has to give them is the subsidies, is making sure that the price is lessened. Now, my noble delegation, we are saying this: we do not have enough funds. So as they're claiming that we can test this to see if their policy, if it works, we cannot work on test, my noble delegation. We have to be careful when allocating our funds, simply because we are living in a third world country. Continents like Africa do not have enough resources. And at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we make careful choices when allocating these resources. And we have to make sure that we are careful with the mentality that we put in the society, because everything that happens mentally does affect everything that happens around us. It manifests in the physical, and we want to improve the health of the girl child, the health of every citizen. And we do not want such ideologies of women not being able to afford pads to be spreading around, because women are not people that are incapable. They're people that can afford things for themselves. Now, we as a delegation deserve to take this debate home, simply because we have illustrated the negative flaws of their policy, and we have seen that indeed it does more harm than good. It is not something that is beneficial, and it is toxic to the society, because it will spread the wrong mentality to the women and to the people around them. It would then seem like these people always have to be given things to them, and that is not the identity we want to place on the women. So we want to protect that identity and illustrate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the Deputy Leader of Opposition. So to maybe might be joining us, with the motion, this House would make it mandatory for all secondary schools and tertiary institutions to provide free sanitary wear to all female learners. So if you have your suggestions or your opinion and analysis of the motion, please do kindly share. You can go to our Instagram page, which is SAYWHAT Zimbabwe. On Twitter, it's SAYWHAT.org. And on Facebook, It's just say what. And you can also do the hashtag SASI debate and hashtag debate for health. So right now, those were the opening arguments which were made by the opening government and opening opposition. Time for the closing government and the closing opposition just right after this short break.
Yeehaw! Yeehaw!
Welcome back. It is the SASI debate competition and it is the semi-finals part 2. Many thanks to our supporting partner, the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe, and to those any young people that would want to actually might be facing any sexual harassment or might have experienced sexual abuse, and also maybe would want to just know more about sexual reproductive health, please feel free to call our toll-free number, which is 577. So without wasting any time, it is time for the closing government and the closing opposition to have their arguments. So I will repeat the motion to those ones that are joining us. You can also tell us about what you think. With the motion, this House would make it mandatory for all secondary schools and tertiary institutions to provide free sanitary wear to all female learners. Right now, it is time for the member of government to come forward.
Pity. Do we have to treat harshly these young females who are learning? Don't we have to sympathize with them at some point so that they can feel that the government is standing for us? We are now opposing that stance from the opposition who come and claim that we don't have to give any pity to these young women, and we rather give them something which is not financially and give them something which is not free, which is not fair. And they also advocated that we have to make this female use the cotton and all other remedies which have been used rather away in early stages. But we understand that with this diversity of this world, we see that many things and many diseases are arising, which can lead to infections, which lead to STIs if these sanitary systems are used, because they are not even proven healthy by the healthy sector of Zimbabwe. Now we're moving on to our case, where we want now to address why it is the need to make it mandatory for the institution and all these secondary organizations to provide the sanitary pads. Why it is a necessity. Also, we are going to tell you that if these institutions are suited bestly to provide, also how that will then affect female learners positively. Now moving on. Now moving on, we start with the Y party. We want to reach a point where everyone is accessing all these services basing on how she can earn or not, because some cannot afford. We disagree with the opposition that all have to afford because they can afford, but they didn't prove to us, because we see that this is still a problem. Now we're moving on to tell you that also why these institutions are suited to provide these things, because this is a catchment area where we can see the age range of young girls going to their menses. So it is now a necessity for them now to provide, so that we can have a guarantee that as they are progressing in their menses, they are fully protected and health-wise they are safe. Now, they can also be easily supported by donors, and as you know that donors want accountability and they evaluate after they give their funds, so that they know that their funds are being used effectively.
Mr. Speaker, sir, can you account for the fact that only 1% of poor girls are in schools?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, making it mandatory for the high school and tertiary institution doesn't mean that they cannot even do reach-out programs to the community and provide these sanitary pads. We didn't say that they are going to do that for the kids who are in the institution only. No, we are wrong there. But we are moving on to tell you why now we are saying that we are moving on to tell you how this is now going to affect the well-being and self-esteem of a young girl in this institution. One, it builds self-confidence, where the girl can be always provided, because we know that the menses can happen even in terms of emergency, and also it can disturb her confidentially where others can now shout at her. Now we're moving on to tell you that it proves that hygienically, sanitary pads which are proven by the health sector are the only ones which can cater and give the rightful and sanitary, which is healthier than any other remedies which has been advocated for by the opposition. Now we move on to tell you that these sanitary pads which will be provided, they can provide a bit of confidence because they are moving with modernity. How can you expect kids now to use the sanitary system which has been used in Iron Age and we are now in 2023? That doesn't make sense. Now we are summarizing to tell you that this now is going to effectively affect. Oh, wow.
Now it is time for the member of opposition.
Panel, this debate exists in a material context where period poverty, particularly in the third world or developing world, has become a phenomenon within primary health access and care issues. So fundamentally, we ought to understand that period poverty itself has become the biggest disadvantage to young women, but also not exclusively to young women, but also girls. And most importantly, we do consider the fact that they might be found in schools, but then the school is not the hallmark of representation of where you find young women and girls. So therefore, in our extension, we're going to give you 4 things. Firstly, we are going to give you the situational analysis. Secondly, we're going to actually call out the homogenization and the problematicness of this proposition as per government case. Thirdly, we are also going to give you our model alternative. Then lastly, we are going to weigh in on the outcomes. Then my partner will come and whip the debate. So going on to the situational analysis, we should understand that period poverty itself has affected nearly every young woman and every young girl. So in that particular instance, we believe that these people are dependents to the working class women, and by them being dependent, their financial capabilities are limited, and therefore it is necessary to make an intervention. But however, we do so disagree with the fact that that responsibility to make an intervention should be ceded to schools on two levels. Firstly, schools are not a hallmark representation of where you can find young women and girls. Why? Because also again, a certain fraction or a certain proportionality of young women and young girls does not go to school because of material realities like poverty. And poverty itself giving them in access to education. So therefore, yes, you might promote one girl to attend all lectures or all classes, but there is one girl who has not been privileged enough to even have the chance to dream of an access to a lecture or a class. So therefore, we believe that the homogenization, I'll take you later, Epe. So we believe that the homogenization or the assumption that the school is the home ground of all children or all young girls is problematic and therefore fails to carry the debate further. Then we're also going to call out, as I said before, the homogenization or the homogeneous aspect of this whole fundamental proposition from government's case. They come and assume that every young girl is primarily found in schools and assume that every young girl has access to a school, but then that's problematic as we've shown. I'll take you, Epe. You're not distracting me. As we've shown in our case that not every girl gets to access school systems. Then also again, we're also going to show you, like I said before, we're also going to show you our model alternative. We prefer a world where instead of ceding that responsibility to school, we believe a supra-government intervention with partnerships with multilateral institutions like UN agencies, World Health Organizations, UNICEF, in order to make efforts to resource mobilize and then cede that responsibility to public health institutions which are inclusive and equitable, then accessible to everybody. Because remember, the major chat is on access to primary health care discourse. So we believe that public health institutions are accessible to everyone. But then how do we make it regulatably realistic? We put an age limit as to government can only subsidize free sanitary provision for women under the age of 20. But we're also going to give you also a world where this model has worked. It has worked in Zambia and it's also worked in Scotland. Ebenezer, real quick.
Those things are not mutually exclusive. You can still do our policy. Our policy does not stop other things from happening.
Well, but then your policy does not specifically mention those things, how they happen. So you lack on the technical aspect of implementation. But however, we are not going on outcomes. So our debate outstandingly becomes unique on the fact that, one, we give you equity, we give you access, and we give you distributive justice. On the matters that, one, we propose a model that is accessible to everybody. Two, we disregard the homogenization and rather acknowledge the intersection in women issues. With this, we have a proud to oppose.
Now I call upon the government whip.
Okay, so panel, in this debate, it is pretty obvious that everyone agrees that the girl child in themselves are disadvantaged in a way when it comes to access to sanitary wear. Where in the first half we have the opening government that came and told us how the poor access to sanitary wear has led to a lot of girls that are dropping out of school and has led to a lot of girls that are missing school, and how sanitary wear in itself is expensive within our country, and which has led to most girls that are not affording it. Also, they also came and told us how it is the government's duty to help those that are disadvantaged, and why we're also targeting government institutions, because they're the ones that are working in relation to the government. The opposition then also came and talked about how they prefer that girls go on and use cotton rags, which were used by generations ago, and which in itself we feel is problematic because of the effects that these things also have on their health. Also, they also came and talked about how they feel that girls in themselves are not, I'll take it later. They also came and told us how girls themselves are not underprivileged, or that they're capable to produce these things for themselves. But what they failed to put in, to understand, is that even within those institutions, there are still ladies that are still underprivileged, that they have organizations that are paying fees for them. So are we saying just because some of the girls in tertiary institutions can afford, are we going to leave a gap, which leads to what we brought to you as side closing government, where my partner was alluding to that what we're vying for is an equity between, so that we have an equity between the girls that can afford and those that cannot afford, so that we do not have girls that are missing school days. We don't have girls that are dropping out because of issues such as failure to get access to sanitary wear. Also, the closing opposition then came and said that schools in themselves are not a hallmark to where we find girls, but we're saying that the majority of girls that are actually in need of this sanitary wear are also in schools. And also how we allude to you that just because we're targeting secondary schools and tertiary institutions doesn't mean
Point of clarity.
I'll take it later. Doesn't mean that we're not also going to target the same girls that are in the society, because we feel that the same secondary schools are the ones that can track which girls were dropped out of school because they could not afford education in itself, which then goes on to prove that they're the same people that are in a fundamental stakeholder position to actually select or choose how to help those girls that dropped out, because they're the ones that actually are in link or have more access to these girls that need this help. They're the ones that are actually mostly interactive with these girls. Now, moving on to why, I'll take you later, why we deserve to take this debate and what we brought to you as side closing government. We brought to you how we feel that it is really mandatory for us to make this, or why it is really necessary to make this mandatory in schools, because we feel that there is a gap that still exists. The fact that we're talking about this topic goes on to prove that there is a gap that is existing where we do not have equality within the girls that can afford and those that cannot afford. We need to move to a point where there is equality in access to sanitary wear, so that we cannot disadvantage some of those girls that cannot afford. We need all of them to be in an equal ground where they can afford. We also came and proved you how these institutions themselves are a fundamental key holder when it comes to this, where they are the ones that have more access to these girls. They're the same people that are more able to track these girls and so on. Also, we also feel that we also deserve to take this debate home, because at the end of the day, these girls in themselves, these schools are the ones that can then go on to track those girls that are so disadvantaged that they got left or marginalized. Also, we find it problematic that they come and tell us that they want health institutions to go on and fund this, where we have health institutions that are actually failing to track some cases such as HIV prevalence, STIs, and so on. At the end of the day, how then is them adding this burden on them? So I'll take you now, ma'am.
It's okay.
Okay, we feel that how is it then going to help us to go on and burden the some health institutions that are failing to fulfill the duties that they already have? So at the end of the day, we show you why it is mandatory to have these institutions take this role. Secondly, how this is going to help us. This is going to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. To all the contestants, can we just have our mics pointing at us like this? Oh, mics. Thank you so much. All right, so now it is time for the final whip. It is the opposition whip.
In summary of this debate, we get three major clashes from the entire government bench, and I'll give you a way in primarily with our case. The government talks about how it's legitimate for us to use the metric of government schools, but in juxtaposition to what Liam told you, of the issue of the structure of government schools, we outrightly not only move their point out, but evidently show you how these government schools or these schools are usually the most vulnerable institutions to actually focus to mandate something. Because one, these are schools where people are dropping out, like CG had mentioned, but two, they're not only a representation of just a fraction, but thirdly, these institutions themselves are usually struggling. Why is this then problematic, especially on the second case that OG came and spoke about, to say that the government is legitimate to ask schools to do this? It is problematic because not only does Liam show you how they evade responsibility as a government, but place burden on those institutions, but in most instances, it creates a paradox in which those very same institutions not only struggle, but above and beyond, the government itself runs away from their main obligation, which is to create access to resources, but above and beyond that, fail to achieve it, because they then will fall under this facade of, we told the institutions to provide and it's not our responsibility. Even if you say you're going to reduce taxes, we should understand that the majority of these government schools fail to even get textbooks. Hence why the alternative that we tell you that we would rather have a non-government or multinational companies stepping in, like the UNICEFs that give books, but in this instance the World Health, is much more viable, but with the government taking sole responsibility and accountability. But lastly, I'll take you soon, Ebenezer. Lastly, when we get CG's case, they primarily come and tell you why these institutions, like OG had said, but they talk about how it's easy for NGOs to come and donate to these schools, which we think is true. But we think at the end of the day, if you look at the impact of this, let's say, this move towards creating access, how best do we achieve it if we are looking at a small pool, but above and beyond, if we're also comparing how we want outcomes of inclusivity and access, we don't achieve it if you're just focusing on a small number. Ebenezer, before I summarize.
Also, our model does not put financial burden on schools. It puts administrative burden on schools. Financial burden comes from organizations like UN and the government and corporations, not schools.
I just wish you had clarified that in your flawed model, Ebenezer. You didn't. But above and beyond, let's just assume that it does that. At the end of the day, you still fail to show us how you just only primarily focus on one side, let's say government school, and exclude primary schools, private schools, yet you had said that all these individuals, even the middle class, sometimes struggle to access. You shoot yourself in the foot at the end of the day. Why do we then deserve to win this debate? Liam comes and tells you three fundamental things. Not only does he show you the lived reality on the ground of how women are not all the same, but above and beyond you, he shows you our alternative of putting the obligation on the government. We've seen it possible not only in developing countries like Scotland, but even Zambia, which has so much debt. So at a point in time in which you remove that responsibility, you create a government which is going to constantly evade their problems. You're going to have a government that is going to escape and say, we have a lot of problems to deal with. We actually accept that sanitary poverty is a reality, but we want a world in which we not only provide for a larger pool of individuals, but we engage it at its core. You can't achieve it when you put an extra obligation on institutions that are struggling, and you cannot achieve it when you are running away from your responsibility as government, especially when you are duly elected to the citizens. The reason why CEO wins this debate is not only because we deal with the issue of access, but we definitely help people. Thank you.
It is hashtag SASI debate, nurturing ideas for a healthier society through debate. It is indeed all systems go. Thank you so much to all the contestants for having a brilliant fight. So after the break, right now, our judge is about to deliberate on the results, and after the break, we'll be waiting for the results and we can be able to announce them. So right now, we're just about to get into that segment whereby it is how well do you know your partner, so that we can just relax and maybe just reduce that that heated atmosphere to just an optimum temperature. So let's take a short break. We'll be back right after these messages.
Yeehaw! Yeehaw!
Welcome back. It is hashtag SASI debate, hashtag debate for health. Many thanks to our supporting partner, the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe, and this show is proudly brought to you by Say What. So want to engage with us? Instagram, it is Say What Zimbabwe, Twitter, Say What Org, and Facebook, it is just Say What. So this segment, it is the segment whereby we get to know the people, if they just know their partners way beyond this professional relationship. Okay, so contestants, how are you? Yeah, I can feel it. Right. So I just want us to swap partners. So I want Ebenezer to swap with Abshaw. Can you just... And Nyasha, can you swap with Maria? Nyasha, you okay? You're tired. All right. So the first question that I'm just going to ask you, is, at the moment, what's your partner's favorite song? It's easy. There's the song that you always see your partner dancing to, be like, yeah. Yeah, that's how we young people get down to music. But yeah, what's your partner's favorite song? It's easy. So if you want help, if you want to know more about sexual reproductive health, please just go to 577. It's a toll-free number. If you don't even have airtime, you can just call it and we'll be able to assist you. All right, Maria is already getting in, tuning to the vibe. Yeah, I like the vibe. Maria, what's your partner's favorite song at the moment? Liam, yes.
Plenty by Burna Boy.
That's true. I'm a Burna Boy fan, and Plenty is the favorite song of the moment.
Okay, let's see if he got Maria's favorite song at the moment. What's that? Please don't tell me it's Plenty.
Well, the only similarity there is Burna Boy and it's Common Person.
Those ones. Let's give them a round of applause. All right. Okay, Robert, tell me Nyasha's favorite tune at the moment.
I'm going to say Abomvelo.
Abomvelo. Is that what?
First of all, I have no idea.
She doesn't even know the song.
I don't know it.
You don't know it?
I don't. I think at the moment, I don't have a favorite song. I have a favorite artist at the moment.
Who is that?
So at the moment, it's Billie Eilish.
Oh, the bad guy. I'm a bad. All right. So what's Robbie's favorite song at the moment?
I don't know the name of the song because I don't really listen to Amapiano that much, but I'm certain it's this other Amapiano song. I'm not going to sing it because that one.
No, how will we know? Just tell us the tune.
So let's say I don't know. But it's an Amapiano song, I'm certain of that.
It's Abomvelo. Is it Abomvelo?
No, she's right. I don't know. I just had an interest in Umland, the Blando song.
Exactly.
Oh.
I knew the song, but I didn't know the name.
All right. Thank you so much. Moving to Abshaw. What's for this favorite tune at the moment?
Nyoka Msango by Thomas Mapum.
Okay. Are you sure?
Definite.
Pazi. Nyoka Msango. Pazi.
Okay.
What's your comment on that one?
That was my favorite song 3 days ago.
It was indeed.
It's not.
But what's your favorite song at the moment?
Wow, at the moment I don't have a favorite song.
But Nan, isn't there anyone that song that comes to mind whereby if you just open your music app?
Yes, Dolly Parton. Like that's my favorite folder right now.
All right, she's classic. All right, so what's Abshu's favorite tune at the moment?
Confused. Shisha.
Any comments?
She's totally lost.
Totally lost.
Like total, yeah.
Shisha, but do you know the song?
I just know the shisha.
But you're not really interested in the song that much to that extent.
Yeah, it's just trending in the street, so I just. Yeah.
All right. But what's your favorite tune at the moment?
My favorite tune is from Tuesday Zababa.
Oh,
Oliver
Mtuku is fuzzy. You guys are classic. Okay, Carol. What's Ebenezer's favorite tune at the moment?
He likes, I don't know who sang it. It's called Silas Mavende.
Is that true, Ebenezer?
Yes, by Saint Flo.
Can you just do a snap? I don't know about that one. Get ready. Yes. I don't even know.
I just, the intro is like, Zitarangu Silas Mavend. Nichi Kaka.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Ebenezer. So, what's Kerry's favorite tune at the moment?
I forgot the name, but I know it's a Burna Boy song.
Can you just give us a snip? Shazam can be able to tell us what song is that.
Nah, it's between either. No, it's not Last. I forgot the name, but I know it's a Burna Boy song. I know it's a Burna Boy song, definitely.
You don't know the tune. Do you know how it goes?
I forgot. But I know it's a Burna Boy song.
It's Last.
Last. Yes, I was right.
Okay. It is last. All right. Thank you so much, guys. So right now the results are out, and it's time for the announcement. So stay tuned. Welcome back. It is #SASI debate, and these are the semi-finals. So the results are now out. Let's just announce them. At the fourth place is Mutare Polytechnic. Mutare Polytechnic is at the fourth place. Third place is University of Zimbabwe. University of Zimbabwe. The first place, the winners for this episode, it is Midlands State University. A round of applause to Midlands State University. So it was indeed an exciting battle, a battle that was full of surprises, and also the arguments were amazing. There were amazing arguments that we just heard from there. So please do engage with us. Tell us about the institute that you think we're going to get to see at the finals, because after this, we get to the finals. So from us at Say What, and me, myself, Tatenda Prince Chitenene, your debate master, thank you so much for joining us. See you at the finals.
Even Mandela had a dream. EMP has a dream. You better get up and work on your dream. Work on that dream. Work on that dream. Work on that dream.
I got a dream. When you know you have a dream.
Work.
I got a dream.